Hey everyone, it's Chay on the mic. We're going beyond politics. Hope you're psyched. Not just policies, not just plans. We're talking dreams, hobbies, and life's other strands. We'll meet the leaders behind the scenes, uncover the stories in between, the laughs, the quirks, the passions they hide, their personal moments, unfiltered and wide. Ready or not, let's get underway. This is Beyond Politics with Chay. Hi, it's Chay. Welcome back. You're with the Oz Arab Media team. Today on Beyond Politics with Chay, I'm joined by Mark Coure, State Member for Oatley and Shadow Minister for Multiculturalism and Southwest Sydney. Born and raised in the St. George area, Mark joins me today to share more about his professional and personal story. Mark, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you very much, Chay. Thank you very much for having me.
Glad that you're here. Let's get straight into our icebreaker challenge.
Please do.
3 curveball questions. First thing that comes to mind.
Sure.
Starting with, what is one thing that people don't know about you?
Well, many people don't know that my grandparents were born in Egypt.
Really?
And arrived in Australia in the 1950s.
Nice. Okay, a common compliment that you receive all the time.
Well, I think a common compliment that I would get all the time is probably about my 2 young boys, James and Sam. One is 11, one is 5.
Nice, nice. Very humble of you. Very humble of you. Okay, now the last question, a bit more of a creative question. If you could introduce a feature to a smartphone, iPhone or Samsung, what would that be and why?
Well, I think it would be either the recording or it would be either the music feature or it could be the teleprompter, which is an app on the iPhone. Nice. I love my iPhone. One of the original users of iPhone when it first came out. We come from a family of iPhone users at home. But it is a great product and there are so many different apps.
Thank you for sharing. Let's look now more into your childhood, your personal story. Share with us a memory or that story that really inspired you to enter a life in politics, drawing on some of those influences that you shared with us before.
Yeah, I think a really good question. So thank you so much for that. Okay. I think, one of my very first sort of entries into politics was as a 13 or a 14-year-old over a set of cricket nets. My mates and I, my friends and I from school were playing cricket at one of the local parks in my electorate. And the fencing needed to be redone. One of the kids in our little group deeply scratched his leg. So we took up a petition. We wrote to council. We spoke at council. And I just remember as a 13 or a 14-year-old getting up at the local council, it was Coure Council back then, and speaking in front of 12 or 13 or 14 councillors. I just remember all of them were in their 50s and 60s and 70s. There was probably one in their 80s. Convincing our local council and our councillors the need to repair and to fix and to upgrade the local cricket nets. That was my first entry into politics. And I, had a petition going. I wrote to the mayor and the councillors as a 12 and 13, 14-year-old talking about the need to upgrade these cricket nets. And then, of course, they got upgraded. And from there, it was a sort of an entry into politics, learning about the different parties and what they stood for. Fast forward probably about 20 years later, getting elected to Parliament at 31, 32, I was able to upgrade the same cricket nets that were upgraded only 20 years earlier by myself by lobbying the council.
So they say some people don't change. Clearly a passion and a love for yourself and the people surrounding you. So that would have been a very fond and satisfying memory, I'm sure.
It certainly was. And I think, and that's where I suppose from that day onwards and that period as a 12, 13-year-old, realising early on that if you really want to make a difference, you've got to work hard for it. And it's about making a difference not just for your community, but for the broader community and the state and country as well. And that's, it's something I've taken with me ever since that journey of politics started at a young age. Working hard, getting results, working hard for the community, And I often say this to members of parliament who get elected for the first time. You've got to be part of your community. You've got to live and breathe it. You need to know every pothole in every street, in every suburb.
We'll get on to that local aspect of politics shortly. Thank you, Mark, for sharing. Okay, I'm going to bring something else to focus now. Could you share with us a passion or a talent, something that you harbour that would surprise people if they knew?
Well, I think one of the things I do like the most is cooking. And,
Nice.
My wife is Lebanese and obviously her family.
Fortunate.
Very, very fortunate. That's right. That's what she says too. And obviously her mum and dad came here. Her mum came here in the 60s, her dad a little earlier than that. And one of the things that I do like doing is cooking. And, one of the things that I think I'm good at is coursa. My grandmother used to make coursa.
That is amazing.
And I'm able to do that now. And it's something I love. The kids love as well. It's good food, particularly during winter. It's great food.
Very nice soup, yeah.
So I'm able to do that. And as you probably know through your parents or grandparents, it is a labour-intensive exercise. Coring out the zucchini and of course putting it into a pot and all the spices and the mince and so forth.
You definitely have it down packed.
Well, I've done it so many times now. I actually don't need to Google the menu. The recipe, I should say. It is something that I do know, and I put in probably a little bit too much of the Lebanese spices, but it's something I love. I love doing.
Everyone has their own, special palate, and look, here at Oz Arab Media, you're not far. If there's any time that you'd like to drop us off some of your coursa or your wife's coursa, you are more than welcome.
Yeah, look, I'd love to. I do love making coursa. It's something I do in the house.
Nice.
My wife Adeline, who just actually teaches up the road at Milpera, at MSJ, the girls' school up the road. She does obviously Tadbuli and she does it well, and Kibbe as well. It's cooking is something that brings families together. Eating as families, brings everyone around the table. And, in our household, we'll have an Indian night or a Greek night or a Lebanese night around the table. Or even on Sunday, we'll go out for pizza at one of the local, many wonderful pizzerias. But, eating and enjoying everyone's company is what family is all about.
A beautiful insight into your life, your perspective, culture, and obviously your beautiful family.
Thank you.
Mark, let's go into a more policy-focused discussion. So we touched on it a little bit earlier. You're a firm believer in the expression, all politics is local. Can you share with me how this approach has shaped your career and also your outlook on politics?
Well, I think I've learnt from some of the best politicians, but also have learnt not what to do from many other politicians. And I think at the end of the day, you need to be out there in the community. For example, this morning at the local bowling club in my electorate, we had over 130 people from the local suburb having morning tea, raising their issues, raising their concerns, and how I can fix them. This was a great insight. And I do this regularly. I do it 4 or 5 times a year at different RSL clubs or different bowling clubs. Because you've got to be out there in the community. You've got to be visible. You've got to, like I do. I door knock in between elections. I'm standing at railway stations at, 3 or 4 degrees at a winter morning in between elections. I do the morning teas. I do the telephone canvassing where I'm able to, call random people in my electorate about, what are their concerns, what are their issues, what I can do to help and how I can do to help. This is really important because firstly, it keeps you grounded. Secondly, you understand the issues, you learn from those issues, and you work as a partnership with the community about how we make our place a great place to live, work and raise a family.
Thank you, Mark, for sharing. I've gotten a very, very detailed insight into the way that you support and connect with, obviously, your local area, which you're known to do. And we see you all the time at these events. Looking into now that first chapter of your political life, that move from the local council to becoming a sworn state member for Parliament, what are the 1 or 2 fond memories that you keep? And perhaps if you could explain to me and our audience, what was the biggest difference in terms of your everyday life? What changes it brought?
Look, that's a really good question. And, looking back now, it's 14 years in Parliament, which has been an amazing journey, an amazing ride, working in with the community about making our place and our local area a great place to live and work and raise a family. I will never forget the time on election night in 2011 where I wasn't expected to win, that I was leading the count. And after 2 weeks of counting and recounting, I was the ultimate winner. Out of 55 or 56 or 57,000 people living in our electorate, I won by just 250 votes. And it was an amazing time, an extraordinary time, a time I'll never forget. But it was an opportunity for me to get on with the job of outlining and delivering on what I had promised at the recent election. And that involved upgrading Oatley and Narwee railway stations, which we've done, upgrading St George Hospital, which is stages 1 and 2 are now complete, and stage 3 is underway. It was about delivering for our local community that our community has been wanting for generations, upgrades to transport or to hospitals or to education. And it was a period of time that I will never forget.
Beautiful insight, obviously huge achievement for you and your supporters, including your family. Let's take a look into Australia's signature political style. Now, Australian politics has been described as having a unique character. What do you think this means?
Well, I think in Australia our style is unique. And, it's firstly we've got compulsory voting, and that doesn't happen in too many countries. We also have, if it's in New South Wales, optional preferential, which means that you can just vote one. But at a federal level, you have to number every square. And I think that's really important because we have a stable democracy here in Australia. It's either one of the major parties will form government with or without the help of independents along the way.
And that's very unique as well.
It is very unique. But what I'm getting at is everyone gets a say. Well, that doesn't happen in some countries. It doesn't happen in America, for example, where compulsory voting doesn't exist. You don't have to register, you don't have to vote. And I think that's the strength of our system. Compulsory voting means that everyone gets a say and everyone has buy-in, if you know what I mean, in terms of, who they prefer. And of course, you've got then a preference as well. Our political system in Australia is unique. I mean, we were the very first states or countries to grant women the right to vote, for example, which is, extremely important. There are some countries around the world that are crying out for democracy, wanting a more stable, democratic country. And here in Australia, we're very, very lucky. Unfortunately, some people do take that for granted.
It tends to happen.
It does tend to happen.
There's disengagement that occurs.
Yeah.
But if I could just, looking at the style then of Australia's political system, democracy, in terms of its values, what do you think sets it apart, especially compared with other political systems?
Look, we're a very multicultural, multi-faith nation. We're a very stable democracy. And I think all three of those work hand in hand. I mean, you have here in Australia the opportunity to sit down with a member of parliament. You have an opportunity to knock on his or her door or send him an email or to have a morning tea or a coffee with your local member of parliament to raise those issues that have been, worrying you or your neighbour or family or neighbourhood for a long time. And that's one of the things that sort of sets us apart for the rest of the world. Whilst, it's a strong democracy, it's only stronger by those that are participating in it.
I think that's very well articulated and something that a lot of people tend to forget, but that becomes more prominent when comparing with other political systems and democracies. So thank you, Mark, for sharing. Now, a key characteristics of Australian politics is its pragmatic, style. How do you see this playing now in the policy debate, and can you draw on an example to help describe that pragmatic approach to Australian policymaking and politics?
Yeah, look, it's a really good question. And I think, here in Australia, this pragmatic approach, enabling you to raise issues with members of parliament, to have that debate in the parliament itself is really important, is fundamentally important. And, there's very little these days that really sets political parties apart. But, there is, more that unites us and less that divides us. And as a parliamentarian, and even before that in local government, you want to reach out across the aisle to get the support of your fellow parliamentarians on that particular burning issue. And, over, the last 14 years in Parliament, we've seen a lot of consensus in Parliament, updating and upgrading and rebuilding our hospital system from scratch, our education system, ensuring that kids are able to go to new and improved schools, that our hospitals are being rebuilt across the state. I mean, they're fundamentally important. Ensuring that, as a parliamentarian, I've improved my local area from the day I started. And that's something that I fundamentally believe in.
And a great contribution from you to the local area and obviously your colleagues. Something, again, I'm going to really drive this home. People forget, and it's good to remember, obviously, with the election coming up. Now, Mark, thank you for sharing that insight into policymaking and politics. I'm going to close off with the rapid fire section. 5 very quick questions, going to take you off script.
Sure.
And the first thing, we want to know the first thing that comes to mind, starting with your favourite film.
I have 2, Patriot Games and The Untouchables.
Why?
Well, Harrison Ford is in one of them. Sean Connery is in another. They're both great movies, 80s, 90s, probably late 80s. Showing my age here, Chay, showing my age here. They're great movies, and I would also, if I could, probably look at Grease as well.
Nice. Grease is a nice touch.
Yeah.
Okay, favourite song? Maybe something from Grease.
Yeah. Look, any Beatles song, really.
Nice. Okay. Favourite meal?
Well, I think we talked about that.
Kusa.
Yeah, love kusa. Look, to be honest, I'm not fussy with food at all. I love all types of food. My kids love food as well. It could be Indian, it could be spicy food, it could be Lebanese food. But Lebanese food is up there.
Nice. Okay, you're very, very vocal in the local area. Can you share with us your favourite restaurant or cafe, whether that be in Sydney or around the world?
Well, I have a couple of favourite restaurants, starting with Lebanese, if I can, while we're talking about it, Lebanese. Gibran's at Mount Lewis, great food.
Nice
Sour, great food at Oatley. So if you've never been to Sour Lebanese restaurant, you need to go there as well.
Thank you.
There's a great Italian restaurant, Mama Baroni's. Thursday night's chicken night at our family home. So we've got wishbone chicken. And there's a great little Chinese restaurant in Beverly Hills that we go to called 888.
Nice to know. A few options there.
There are a few options,
Thank you. Okay, the last book you've read.
Last book I've read, I would say there's a few actually. There's a few different books I've read on campaigning, a few different books on communications. Either one of those, to be honest.
Key takeaway.
Key takeaway, all politics is local.
All politics is local. Nice to know. Thank you, Mark, for joining me today on an episode of Beyond Politics with Chay. Before I wrap up, I'm going to give Mark a chance to share his best contact details with you. And for our viewers, don't stop sharing and liking this content. And until next time, take care and stay connected. Mark, over to you.
Well, if there's anything I can do for you and your community, please let me know. My office is in Mortdale at 24 Pitt Street, Mortdale, and my email address is oatley@parliament.newsouthwales.gov.au. I'm also on social media, on Twitter, on Facebook, and on Instagram.